Good morning, good morning, good morning, and welcome to another episode of On the Couch with Creatives. I say good morning because it's here in the UK, but good afternoon or good evening if you're anywhere else in the world. I'm Melanie Perry.
And I'm Julie Hyde-Mew.
And this is On the Couch with Creatives. Fans and followers of our show will know by now that we're part of the Creatives Group, the private network for creative professionals everywhere. Together, we help you create at your best, connect you with like-minded individuals, and therefore help you to grow your creative business. That sounds like a good idea to you and you'd like to find out more? Please don't hesitate to reach out to either Julie or myself after the show. We'd be delighted to talk to you. But this is On the Couch. So Julie, who do we have on the couch today?
Today we have Louise Minchin, and Louise is most famous for presenting BBC Breakfast for 20 years. She's also presented many other TV programs and participated in reality TV shows as a celebrity, including I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here, Time Crashers, and Celebrity MasterChef. Louise is an amazing woman because on top of all that, she's also written two non-fiction books, Dare to Try and Fearless, Adventures of Extraordinary Women, which won the People's Book Prize 2024 for non-fiction. And she's written a thriller, which will be out in December 2024. So let's get her on the couch. Hello, Louise. Welcome to On the Couch with Creatives. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much indeed. I'm absolutely delighted to be here. Thank you both. Nice to see you.
Well, let's start off with your story right from the beginning. How did you become a television presenter? Start off with that.
I'll try and do it really briefly because obviously it's quite a long story. I always was obsessed by news. Even when I was little, I used to listen to The World Tonight. Some of you will be familiar with that on Radio 4. When I went to university, I started writing for the Student Chronicle at St Andrews University. So always kind of had a toe in journalism, but didn't know really what it meant to have a job in journalism. I studied Spanish at university. I then lived in Latin America for a year. And I got a job. My first job out of university was as an interpreter, a Spanish interpreter, living in deepest, darkest Patagonia in Chile and working for Rally International. And I had to do all the interviews as a young, I think I was 23, 22 or 23, a very young person. I had to be doing the interviews because I was one of the few people who spoke Spanish. And I remember very clearly being interviewed a bit like this, on a very small radio station and just looking at the person interviewing me and thinking, oh, wow, that is a job, talking to people and asking them questions. And I knew at that moment, that's what I wanted to do. I came back, worked for the Latin American section of the World Service, worked for the Today program, but at a very entry level, I was a production assistant and I basically made tea, if that's what people wanted, or gotten, I mean, it was really something advanced if I was allowed to actually edit something or record something.
Well, that's how most people start their television careers, is
Of
they literally
course.
get a toe in the door and they do all the odd jobs.
And I would recommend, because actually, once you've done all of those jobs, you know exactly how everything works. In any industry, I would recommend start at the bottom, because you then know the system, how things work, what works, what doesn't, and how to be nice to people. Because also, when you're right at the bottom of the pile, I've got a whole long list of people who weren't very nice to me, and and I've come across them in other parts of my career, and that's a really interesting dynamic there. But and then I did that for a couple of years and realized that I wanted to be a journalist. But actually, in that particular where I was, being a production assistant, I wasn't going to be allowed to go down the journalism route. So I went back to university, did a journalism diploma at the London College of Printing, as it was then, and then went and worked in local radio and took a massive pay cut, huge pay cut, to work in local radio. But I did that because I was so passionate about stories, about being the person who was reporting those stories, and it was something I just felt I had to do.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
And most people start in local radio, regional radio. I did as well in South Africa. I started local, regional, and then I went up to Joburg in the HQ. And then I also landed up being a television news presenter. And you start from the bottom and you work your way up.
Yeah, and sometimes you get lucky breaks. I mean, I worked really hard. I really enjoyed local radio actually, because that's a wonderful place to really learn your craft in a sort of safe space in some ways. You know, I made some hilarious mistakes, like talking about patchy crowds instead of patchy clouds when I was doing the weather, just like funny, silly things. But I was mentored. I had a mentor there who was incredible, who kind of held my hand. And like a bit like you, then went to London. I got a job for a London radio station, which was bigger again. And then I had a big lucky break after about 5 years or so, probably, of doing that, where I went for a job at the BBC. I was getting married, and I thought, I was freelance at the time. I thought, oh gosh, I'm getting married. It's kind of grown up thing. Maybe I need an actual job as opposed to being freelance. Started work on BBC News 24 as it was then, but again, back as a producer because I couldn't get a journal. It was really difficult to get a reporter's job. And did that for a few months. And then there was an interview process for an overnight reporter's job. And I went for that, and I knew I'd prepared really well, and I knew I'd done a good interview. But they came to me and said, "Oh, Louise, we're not going to give you that job." And I was devastated. And then in the next breath, they said, "But we'd like to try you out as a presenter."
Wow.
I mean, just like that. It was the most extraordinary thing. And I'd done some presenting at Channel 5 and various things. So it wasn't like it was completely new to me. But honestly, sometimes you can get a lucky break when you are not expecting it. And then I started on overnights on the BBC World. And then, much after that, the path was much easier. But I did not land on the BBC Breakfast sofa either. I was working for BBC Breakfast freelance when Susanna and Sian weren't available, doing all the shifts they didn't want to do, the weekend shifts, the Christmas Day shift. That's where you need to start, right?
Paying your dues.
I paid my dues, and that's where you learn. And eventually got, again, a bit of luck in some ways. I loved breakfast. I've always loved it because for me, it has that really eclectic mix of talking to the Prime Minister and then talking to Rob Burrows or whatever it might be. Do you sort of mean you've got a real mix of stories and type of stories? And it just, for me, it was just seemed like the perfect place for me to work. I never thought I'd get the job permanently. And again, had a strange stroke of luck in some ways, I would think you would say, where for me anyway, they decided to move the programme from London up to Media City, Salford. And Sian, had home commitments and couldn't go. And so I got the job. And again, just honestly, and that was difficult because we were moving our whole family and things like that. But it was just a sort of extraordinary thing that I never thought was going to happen.
Mm.
And you had 20 years of it. That's a good chunk of time.
Yeah, I think I did it for 10 years. Did I do it for 10 years? I think I did it 10 years freelance before I did it. I can't remember the timings now, but yeah, 8 or 10 years permanently. So good chunk of time. Yeah.
And then you've also you presented other shows as well, the One Show. And were you always stepping in or did you also have permanent gigs on those shows?
I did not on the One Show. I stepped in and did the One Show, which was a great show to do. I really enjoyed that. It was one particular summer where I spent most of the summer presenting that, which was great fun. Other shows like Missing Live, that was my show. Real Rescues I did as well. And also used to work on 5 Live. I worked on 5 Live for a lot of the time. While I was sort of working on News 24, I had a sort of dual career in radio and TV, doing both at the same time. But yeah, lots of different things, which was really, really fun.
What was your favourite, Louise?
What was my favourite? That's such a good question. My favourite was breakfast. I absolutely, it's kind of in my DNA and it was my heart and soul. And I absolutely loved working on that program, loved the team, loved also being part of what I still feel I'm part of now is this huge, 6.5 million people watch BBC Breakfast. It's a lot of people. And you're welcomed into people's homes at a very special time of day. And I feel part of this enormous BBC Breakfast family. And I'm kind of still part of the family, even though I'm not there anymore. But yeah, breakfast 100% was the job that it was that feels like my most, the job I most wanted to do and the job I most loved doing as well.
And you started writing though, didn't you, while you were presenting?
Yeah, so I wanted to write fiction for many, many years, but fiction is I'm a journalist. I deal in facts. So I really wanted to write fiction, but I kind of was thinking about, right, before I do that, again, you need to pay your dues. You need to learn how to write. I thought I wanted to write a book about my kind of journey into triathlon, from doing no sport at all to representing my age group in the GB triathlon team. And I had this email from somebody called Matt, who is now a really good friend of mine from Bloomsbury, saying, Louise, we'd really like you to write a book about triathlon. And I genuinely thought it was someone who wanted to go out for lunch. I didn't think he was actually from Bloomsbury. I've told him this a million times. So I sort of ignored it and thought, yeah, it's good. I really love to do that. But yeah, I'm sure he's not from Bloomsbury. I guess what? He was actually from Bloomsbury. So we got in touch. And so I wrote Dare to Try. And you can see it there, Dare to Try with a TRI, obviously, because it's about triathlon. And that I love doing that. So that was just about my journey. And it's kind of, people still buy this book, and I'm trying to think when it was out. I think it
was
came
that
out
from zero to hero, from doing absolutely
from nothing, literally nothing. Yeah,
wow.
to representing my country in my age group. I went to Chicago and did the World Championships. I think I did like 5 or 6 World and European Championships. So that came out in 2018, and I love this book because people still buy this book. It still has, and it's very emotional for me, actually, because somebody told me the other day that there's a woman called Sarah Patterson is her name, and she has just won the European and World Championships in her age group because of this book, because she read this book. And it's not just that, so many people have taken up triathlon or done something, and that for me is just blows my mind that that happens. And I love the book for that. I love that it's on this kind of journey, helping people go on their own adventures.
And being an inspiration. And then, of course, with your next book, which we'll talk about, Fearless, you are now talking about women who inspired you. So tell us a bit more about that one.
So Fearless, it's called Fearless Adventures with Extraordinary Women, and it's just won the People's Book Prize for Nonfiction 2024.
Show the prize, show the prize.
I've got it. Literally, I absolutely, look at this. Yeah. Look at that. I'm so delighted because I've done a lot of sport, and I've won, I think, maybe 2 races in all of dozens and dozens that I've done. But to win a prize as an author is just so exciting. This is 100%. I put 100% of everything I wanted to do into Fearless, and to win that is just super, super exciting. I'm really proud of that.
The People's Book Prize, is voted by readers. There are no judges. So you had a good platform, being in everybody's 6 million homes every day or every morning. Lots of followers, lots of fans, and I'm sure many of them voted for you. And you got the highest number of votes in the nonfiction category.
It's made me super proud, and again really emotional about this book, because this is Fearless Adventures with Extraordinary Women. And what I wanted to do in this book was, I'd noticed, I've just told you my story about triathlon, 0 to going into the World Championships. And I really love stories about endeavor and being intrepid and courageous and brave. And I noticed in those 20 years that mostly when we talked about those stories, we interviewed men. And I just thought, is it that women aren't doing these things like climbing the highest mountains and running the furthest distances? Or is it that we don't hear their stories? And the book is I think most people know the answer to that question. There are women doing incredible things all around the world that break records and break all sorts of things and break taboos and all the rest of it. And I just thought I could sit here and try and get their stories on BBC Breakfast for another 20 years, or I could just get off the sofa, do what I liked, go and do what I like doing best, which is number 1, talking to people, hearing their stories, and number 2, doing that on an adventure. So each chapter is dedicated to a different woman who's, as I said, breaking barriers in sport or challenging stereotypes. They are all in their own way incredibly inspiring. And I went and did the things that they loved, including cycling across the country. I cycled across Argentina. I went free diving under ice. I did all sorts of, for me, really fun things. And again, I know that every time I talk about Fearless, I've done a lot of literary festivals. I did a talk in a school yesterday. It's just incredibly rewarding, again, because I know that every time I leave a room, and I've talked to them about this and the amazing women in it and shared their stories, that someone in that room will go and do something, will take on a challenge. And that's so exciting for me.
And now you are writing a thriller. You finally turning to fiction.
So I said, didn't I, that I always wanted to write fiction. So I wrote, well, and I love, I absolutely, as you can see, I'm absolutely passionate about these books. But, my advice to anybody, and I know we're going to come to top tips later, is if you want to be a writer, you need to write. So this was me writing, and then turning to fiction. I mean, and I always used to interview authors on BBC Breakfast and just think this just doesn't make sense to me, but bear with me. So I've had a character sort of living in my head for literally 12 years since I first moved up to the Northwest with BBC Breakfast. And she's called Lauren, and she's an investigative journalist, and she's 35, and she's got flaws. Not everything about her is absolutely fantastic. She makes mistakes. And I didn't know where to put her. And I was working on an idea about where to basically send her to go on an investigation. And then I went to I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here in Wales. And we were in the castle in Wales, and a storm came. There was so much drama that was on the telly, but also not on the telly. And I just thought that a reality TV show in a remote location where a storm comes and really disrupts things is such a great location for a thriller. So that's what I've done. So it's called Isolation Island. It's not in Wales. It's in the northwest coast of Scotland. It's a tiny island.
Is there murder?
It's a thriller.
Lots of murders.
What does it say? You'd kill to be them, they'd kill to win. That's the front cover. Oh, wow. I can't tell you how many, but yeah, it's a thriller. Not everybody is going to survive.
It's like Agatha Christie's 10 Little Indians. They just
and then there were none. It's exactly like
there were none. Sorry, that's what it's called. And then
it's not. I mean, I wish I was Agatha Christie. Obviously, I wish I could be as brilliant a writer as she was. But yes, I hadn't read And Then There Were None for many years, and I wrote this, literally gave it in, and then listened, and I thought, gosh, this is, without meaning to be, there are so many themes that come through. It's an island, and there's a storm. They're going to get cut off. Anyway, I've had enormous fun writing it. Enormous fun.
And when is it out?
It comes out on the 12th of September. You can pre-order now. And actually, it's so interesting stepping away from, TV, which is something I know really well, into publishing. Because, I mean, I do know publishing, and I've obviously published that first book in 2018. But it's such a different world. And you learn that, publishing a book, writing the book is one thing, but actually publicizing the book, trying to get it into the hands of readers it's like a job. And I've probably put almost as much effort into writing and going and researching Fearless as I have talking about it. And again, with Isolation Island. So really important is, if anybody wants to pre-order, that's massively important for anybody who's a writer. Because it means that, hopefully, it is in people's hands, and hopefully people talk about it. They go pre-order. Hopefully they enjoy it. It's a fun, it's not, there are murders, but it's not really gruesome.
And when I say thriller, it's also sorry.
Go again.
The details of how to pre-order have been going across the bottom of your screen.
Oh, thank you so much. Because I'd like to write again. I mean, I've already got an idea for the next one. And obviously they need to know it's a business. They need to know that people like me as a thriller writer. So, but yeah, I've got an idea that I'm going to start working on today.
The thing is with writing murder mysteries and thrillers is that if you get a really good central character, you can I mean, look at Poirot. How many books did she get out of Miss Marple?
There's two that I mean, I love Lauren. As I say, she's been with me for 12 years, and I'd love her to send her somewhere else. And as I say, I've got a few ideas. Well, I've got one that I really like idea where to send her, but there's another character in the book that I've sort of fallen in love with, and I think they could be a pair. And you'll have to read the book to find out who it is, but I think they'd make a really interesting dynamic pair.
You mean as a romantic couple?
Well, no, it's a
Oh,
yeah, you see,
as a pair of investigators
yeah, well, I think,
Tommy and
yeah.
what was
Oh, there's so many of them, aren't there? All the detective novels, so many detective
Tuppence.
novels. Yeah,
Yeah. Tommy
they
and
have that.
Tuppence. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, we'll see. But it's really exciting times.
Interesting. Interesting. It's lovely when you have that birth of a new idea, though, and it's very new and exciting. And when you see it happen and it comes into reality,
Yeah.
wonderful feeling.
I mean, the thing about what's different for me working in fiction and on TV is obviously TV is so instant. You know, it's there, it's done. So for me, I mean, I think I first started working with Headline. It will be 2 years since I first started working with them until the book is published. I mean, that's the kind of time it takes. And I think I gave in the final draft was probably beginning of February this year, and it doesn't come out till September. But there's, you know, there are, I mean, and I love about what I love about publishing is that there are so many people who are working with me now. It's incredible. But yeah, the timelines just blew my mind. I was like, how can it take that long? But it does, because everything's got to be right. The cover's got to be right. You know, so much, the marketing's got to be right. The publicity's got to be right. So many things that I'm not in charge of, actually.
The proofreading, the
Oh my gosh.
proofreading.
So today, when I finished talking to you, so this is not my proof actually, but my final proof, they've gone through all my final changes, and it's a really key message actually for authors. Today, I'm going to go and check that they've changed what I asked them to change, because stuff happens, stuff gets missed. And I don't even know, you know, it just does. There are so many links in the chain, aren't they? So I'm going to be that really good author, and I'm going to double check.
Yeah, but now you have to read the book over again and laboriously,
Yeah, no,
because you have to make sure every word and every comma is
no,
there.
I've done that. So I've done that bit, and actually I still enjoy it. So that's really is I think a testament to hopefully that it is fun for readers. But so I've done that, but I've literally marked, can't show you, but I've marked in the book every single one. They've sent me it back again, and I'm going to go just through the marks this time to see whether or not they've been changed. So hopefully it's only going to take an hour. It's probably going to take me 4, isn't it?
Let's get some top tips for aspiring authors from
Yes.
you.
Yeah. So number one tip is, it sounds really silly, but somebody gave me some brilliant advice when I was starting on the fiction journey, because I'm a journalist. I love research. I mean, I went up to Scotland. I went and looked at derelict abbeys. I went to lots of castles. And she said, don't get lost in the research, because I could do that forever. Okay, thinking it's not quite, you know, haven't quite done enough. Write. That was my top tip to writers. Sit down at your computer and write. And sometimes that feels really painful. So you can give yourself, you know, I'm going to write for 10 minutes, put it on your timer on your phone. But just do the action of writing. So that's why I wanted to write nonfiction before I wrote fiction. I also write a column for Platinum magazine. I used to write for Cheshire Life, just so you are, you know, you're practicing your craft all the time. So yeah, number one, write. Number two, and this, I don't know if this is obvious or not, read a lot. And I read, so I mean, I was chair of the Women's Prize for fiction last year, so I think I read 80 books in the 6-7 months that I was judging it. Read the genre that you're interested in, you know, whether it's cozy crime, or it might be historical romance or fantasy, whatever it is. Read widely, because that is so helpful when you come back to writing. And for example, listening to Agatha Christie after I'd written it, it's kind of hugely helpful. And the other one is be curious. Be curious, note what's going on, note how people react to things, note what you know, when you've got your characters, you need to really know them, and you can, you know, I don't know, find a mannerism in someone else you think, oh, that's perfect for my character. So be curious, look at the world around you. I mean, everywhere I go now, I'm like, oh, that would be a great place for a thriller. Oh, that would be a great place to do something terribly bad to a character. I can't help myself. So yeah, so it's basically write, read, and be curious.
Fantastic.
And as a TV presenter, you know, people do aspire to become TV presenters, and you know, a lot of people don't. You have. I was very lucky. I also became one, and I thoroughly enjoyed it as well. And as we said just previously, you do have to get your foot in the door, start off
Yeah.
being a coffee maker and whatever, bottle washer, and work your way up the ladder. But do you have 3 top tips for somebody who's wanting to get into that world, and once they're in, how do they proceed?
Okay, let's start with when getting in, because to that point about starting at the bottom, you can make your own luck. If you're in the room, then they might choose you. Okay, so be lucky. And by that I mean, of course, you can't, those things happen to me because I was there. So get yourself in there, whether it's, you might do it via social media, you might do it via, I don't know, technology, you might do whatever. So get yourself in by put yourself in the room is what I would say. And number 2, it sounds really strange, but this worked for me incredibly well. And it was a conscious decision. When I got that job as a producer back on BBC News 24, dress for the part, right? So every day, even though I was a really lowly producer and I'd been a reporter, but I was a producer there, I would come dressed as a reporter. So that meant on the one day that the reporter didn't turn up, they looked around the room and they go, Louise, go. Okay. So think about that wherever you are, because it may not be dressing for the part, it might be talking the part or whatever it is, but play the part you want to play right from the start. Yeah. Put your hand up. And then another point. So I suppose it's related to be lucky is say yes to things. Somebody might want you to go and do something that seems boring or whatever. If you're the person in the room who goes, yes, I'll go and do it, then that's the way you get breaks, because they know that you're reliable, they know that you're enthusiastic, and they know that you will go and do stuff, right? So that's sort of related to be lucky as well. So I think that's what I would say. And the other sort of note really is that lots of young people come to me and they say, I want to be a presenter. I was a journalist. I became a presenter. So what is it that you are? Is it that you are a historian? Is it that you are a gardener? Is it that you are a graphic designer? What is it that you are that you bring to the party that is different?
We're going to wrap up now by delving into your psyche.
Oh, my psyche, gosh.
We are going to play a game with you. I'll explain it to you while Melanie gets out her cards, because she is lagging and I can see her. Yeah. But anyway, she's going to grab her pack of cards.
Okay.
And you are going to choose a card. And this is the Values Jam game. And on the card you choose will be a value. Yeah. And we are going to ask you, or Melanie will ask you a question about that particular value.
Yes.
And please understand, there's no right or wrong answer. It's going to sound weird to you because we're creative people, so we're delving into your mind in a very different way. We're not dealing with facts here. And basically just talk about what comes into your head.
Okay, go for it.
This is playtime. Louise. Creative playtime.
Go.
So I'm going to run my finger along the cards and you just say stop when you want me to stop. Stop. Right, okay. She stopped here. What did she pick? She picked clarity.
Oh,
clarity. That's quite a good one for you as a journalist and a writer. So we're going to ask you creatively, Louise, about clarity.
Yeah. Clarity. Go on.
What does clarity mean to you? What does it, first of all, look like? If you could see it clearly, what would it look like to you?
It's a straight line going on into the distance.
Oh, very good. What does it feel like?
It feels calm.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And what if it had a sound? What would it sound like?
If it had a sound, it would be like a sort. Oh, it sounds a bit weird to me, probably, but like a sort of like a buzzing noise, but like it's a low hum. It's just like, this is the path.
Like a low frequency.
Yeah, this is the path. Everything is okay. We have the path now.
I like that. And if it had a smell, what would it smell like?
Oh, sunshine. Sunshine on grass.
Oh, yes.
Ooh, yes, nice. I like that.
I think anybody living in Britain enjoys that smell. Summer sunshine on grass.
Oh, that's I'm going to ask you one more.
Yeah.
How do you think more clarity could improve the world?
Oh gosh, I think more clarity could definitely improve my life. Um, how could clarity? I think, oh my gosh, I mean, if we could all know the clear way forward, and for me, clarity is not just about the way forward. It's the right way forward. Do you see what I mean? It's the best path. It's the, if I was writing a book, would have a sudden moment when I go, oh, for example, the ending changed in my book, right? Honestly, it changed. And I had this moment where it's sort of a big moment. I just go, wow, that's clear. So for me, if we could all have that, whatever it means in the world to make it better, we would just go, oh, this is what we've been doing all wrong. This is what we need to change. It would be immense. But yeah, clarity is something that is hard to find.
Louise, thank you so much for coming on the Couch with Creators. We've thoroughly enjoyed hearing your story and hearing your advice. And we wish you all the best with all three of your books. And of course, more thrillers in the future.
Fingers crossed. I'm so excited. Writing is something that just excites me so much. So fingers crossed, another one of those will come in a couple of years' time.
Oh,
Super.
fantastic. Thank you so much, Louise, for your talking about your wonderful art. We could have talked to you for so much longer. There's just not enough time on these things. It's been great.
I tried not to talk too long, but it's difficult, isn't it?
Oh, especially when you've achieved as much as you have. My goodness me. But until next time, everybody.
Thank you so much.